Welcome back, everybody, to SPANK'UM Chess. I am B Hood, and here I'm doing a follow-up video from my previous video in the Nimzowitsch Defense in the Colorado Gambit. When your opponent plays in the Colorado Gambit, when your opponent plays E4, E5. E5 is a very flexible, and it can look a bit scary. It can look a bit scary, and White has a few responses, but my recommendation is if he doesn't accept the Gambit, you go D6. And as you can see by the way I've highlighted by the arrows, White has three typical options: knight to C3, queen to E2, and bishop to B5. Bishop to B5 is the most aggressive, and that's the one we'll be discussing today. Before we get into today's video, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hit that like button, pound that subscribe bell to get instant notifications, and leave a comment, because every comment and every notification, every subscription means a lot to me. So please go ahead and hit that, and let's get to it. So my opponent, he plays bishop to B5. I capture the pawn. You most certainly should capture the pawn on E4. Get your pawn back. And here we go. Knight captures on E5. So knight captures on E5 can be, it looks very scary because the pawn, the F7 pawn around your king is weakened, and White is threatening to capture the pawn with the knight and give you a double pawn and ultimately get the rook in the corner. But we have a nice shot that we can counteract that, which is queen to D5. Queen to D5 is a dual purpose move. It's attacking both the pieces and the pawn on F2. But when you make this move here, your opponent may think that you've fallen for one of those cheap traps, and he'll fall right into it, because you can see queen to H5. My opponent plays queen to H5. G6 is forced, and now my opponent captures my knight on C6, so I capture back with C captures on B6, and here it is here. Knight to G6. Knight captures on G6. So he's looking for the discover attack and getting the rook in the corner. However, you must remember this move first. You must make this move first, which is knight to F6, counterattacking his queen. And the queen only has one good square. He really wants to remain in contact with the H file. So if he goes H3, then when you can go if queen to H3, then we have this move here. And so what your opponent does is he goes queen to H4. So now he's still applying pressure in the rook to the rook in the corner, but we also have a counterattacking move, which is queen captures on G2. Queen captures on G2. And in this position here, if your opponent is foolish enough to grab the rook in the corner, if he's foolish enough to grab the rook in the corner, and before I show you, I like to give credit to FIDE Master Gungeon Johnny, also known as GJ Chess on YouTube. He had come out with a repertoire against White 1E4 a few years ago, around 2017, maybe 2017, 2018. And I had been looking for a repertoire against 1E4, and he has about 17 videos, a complete guide for every single variation. That's where I learned the Nimzowitsch Defense from, and he showed me this line in one of his videos. And I definitely recommend you guys go out there and look up GJ Chess and watch his videos, and you'll see where I get it from. So in this position here, my opponent chooses to greedily capture the rook in the corner. He greedily captures the rook in the corner. I capture back, and now here's where it's going to get fun, ladies and gentlemen. The king's going to be breakdancing to the end. Queen captures check. He only has one move, king to E2, and you don't need to worry about the bishop, because his king is stepped up, and you have pawns scattered everywhere. Even though he cannot necessarily attack you immediately, but you need to ramp up your development and get your pieces in the fight. Get your pieces in the fight. They should be fighting and not defending. So here we go. So you must remember, this is the key move right here. F4. F4. Remember, I say this over and over and over again, ladies and gentlemen. What are the F4 and F5 squares when you're attacking? They're the FU squares. So with that move there, it's saying FU. And so now remember, his bishop is still under attack. So he wants to get his pieces out. Knight to C3. So now his bishop is protected, but it's a little too late. It is a little too late, and I'm going to show you why. Bishop to G4 check. King only has one square. King to D3. Now queen to F1 check. King only has one more square, which is D4. Now you call this check. rook to d8 check. King only has one safe square. He only has one safe square. That's king to c5. Now, you give another check with e5 check with the bishop. He only has one safe square. And now, queen to a6 check. And now, you give him the checkmate. You give him the checkmate. Now, as you can see, there is a tremendous amount of danger if your opponent does not accept the gambit and chooses to go e4. You play d6 and you get a good game out of it. In another game, in the Colorado Gambit accepted line, when your opponent plays, when you play e4, knight to c6, knight to f3, you play f5, if I mentioned it before, and your opponent captures the pawn. You go d5, attempting to get your pawn back, and your opponent plays bishop to b5. This is a sideline move where white is attempting to get a rapid development, castle on the king's side, and keep the pressure up. So in this variation, I say that you definitely should capture your pawn. And your opponent plays bishop captures c6. Bishop captures c6 is a dual purpose move. You'll see this in a second. So bishop captures. My opponent played h3. That was a passive move. That move was passive. And when you play passive, you get your ass kicked. And you'll see in this game here. So in this situation, I carry out my normal piece development with knight to f6. My opponent castles on the king's side. Now, I could have played queen to d7, but I wanted to prevent him knight to d4. And this is a nice, flexible, developing move. And it's keeping contact with the weak square over there. So, and look, my opponent is continually playing passive. And I'm going to punish my opponent with e5. As you can see, I have this nice little pawn chain surrounding my king, and I can eventually advance. And even though there's a double pawn, but it can be used, as I've said many times before, technically it can have a downside, but tactically it can be used as a nice secret weapon to put a double push into the center. Now he brings his knight out. And as you can see, if you look at it, his rooks are not connected. Neither are mine, but I'm just one move away. And he's going to be hard pressed because I'm going to be attacking. Bishop to e7. And now he wants to attack a piece. Knight to h4. So I just go ahead. Bishop to e6. Now he's looking to get his dark square bishop out. And he's a little too late. And now he goes f4. He's trying to say F you. That is what he's saying. But I see there's some little bit of tactics normally that I can use in this game right here. And the move that I came out with was knight to e7, which is an attack on the knight in the corner. He can also push forward. Now, if my opponent push forward, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. My opponent captures the pawn, threatening the queen. First, I get his check. Queen captures back. And now knight captures on e4. So now my knight is centralized, and I'm still putting the pressure on the knight on h4. My opponent chooses to go knight to f3. Probably looking to go for some sort of pin, but this is going to cost him because he didn't get his pieces out. Rook to f1. That knight is pinned. He can't move the knight. Queen to e2. And now, bam. The game is just about to be over. Knight check. Pawn captures. Now queen to g3 check. Queen to g3 check. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse by the minute. By the minute. Let's check it out. Queen to g2, defending. But now, bam. It's a little too late. Bishop to c5 check. King steps up to g2, which was his only square because he must remain in contact with the queen. And look what happens. Wow. Bishop to f3, gaining the queen and the game. This is just another example as I continue to show you guys the deadliness of the Nimzowitsch Defense decline Colorado Gambit when they accept the pawn on f3, how you can go about and win the game. Hi-yow! Here we go. Dynamic and tactical game. A3. And now here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to SPANK'UM Chess. I am B.